Hi all, let's look at a final selection of Greco games from apparently Europe 1620. Still not really sure if these were constructed by him or he actually played them, but even if he did construct them, they are remarkably resourceful, so I think he would be a very, very dangerous player by the standards of these compositions. So here, it's interesting now in the Black series how he wrests the initiative from White. And he plays quite a controversial move now by modern standards. He plays f5, and so there's a lot of pawn tension here. White played actually e takes f5, which Rybka likes, and now he plays queen h4 check, which is interesting. It provokes a weakness, and the queen returns. White's clearly better, though, according to Rybka here. This isn't the greatest opening in the world for Black. But instead of playing knight f3, which might be a good move here, actually, because e takes, the king could move. And, White's the one ahead in development here, with the potential bishop c4 and rook e1. Instead, White makes the mistake, like in a lot of these games, of moving his queen out early in her opening. And so the white queen now becomes a source of tempo game for Black. So after f takes, queen takes, the bishop moves back, and now the first tempo gain with knight f6, the queen moves back, and now d5, and we see that the f pawn is going to be picked up. So it's almost like reverse King's Gambit, with Black now collecting White's f pawn, but with the extra tempo, White's trying to hold on to that pawn with g4. But now the undermining move h5, and after h3. H takes g4, H takes, rook takes, queen takes, the queen is driven back, and unfortunately now this also allows queen g3 check, and after king d1, Black plays knight takes g4, which is a strong move, but might not be totally strong. This Rybka thinks knight e4, but the game ends quite quickly now. After this pawn is taken here, queen takes d5 check. So again, punishing example of materialism, which knight e4 wouldn't have shown. So even taking this pawn, it's horrible for White now. So bishop d7. White tries finally to develop, but it's too late with knight f3. And now we see a cute mate in 4. I wonder if you can spot it. If I give you 5 seconds. Okay, knight f2, king e1. Now knight d3 check. So there's two options for Black, both lead to mate. If king f1, there's obviously queen f2 mate. But if king d1, I hope you're aware of the theme here to checkmate White, the smothered mate theme. I'll give you 5 seconds if you're not sure. Okay, it's queen e1 check. So the knight takes, and now we have the smothered mate with the knight f2 mate. So a cute game from Black's perspective, and I find these a bit more entertaining because how does White lose the advantage of the first move basically, and Black still ends up bashing White. Okay, let's look at another game example. So here the King Gambit was accepted with g5 being played, and after g4, knight e5, knight h6 was again played. And White played knight takes g4, which isn't the strongest move in the position, because here queen h4 check is strong, but also d5 is very strong. But let's just see other game examples, and we'll go through the main line of this game. So queen h4, the knight moved, and an imminent disaster was in the waiting now. So d5, and White unfortunately took with the bishop, and this allowed, I hope you can spot it, bishop g4, so the queen was checkmated. The knight's pinned, so it can't do anything. So White's just losing this horribly. So in this position, actually, White's best was probably to just take or bishop e2. So that just demonstrates, a quick d5 from Black can be very dangerous. If we move on. So here again, e4, e5, but now bishop c4, bishop c5. So with no f4 being played, instead queen h5. So queen e7 was used to protect f7, e5. After knight c3, c6 to stop knight d5. knight f3, and now knight f6. But attacking the queen and offering e5. So this leads into this very sharp continuation. Queen takes e5, bishop takes f2. And here, unfortunately, white took on f2. White should really just play king f1. And apparently, white's better according to Rybka. But he played the disastrous king takes f2, and we see knight g4 check. Forking queen and king. So king f1, knight takes e5, and that's it. We move on. So here, again, king's gambit, where black's playing g5, but g4 now. And here, knight h6 to protect both f7 and g4. White takes on g4, but now knight takes g4 is a nice move. I think white's in a lot of trouble. It takes Rybka actually more than depth 12-13 to start seeing the true horror of the position for white now. Basically, after queen takes g4, d5, white plays queen takes f4, which is apparently a cunning, little trick, because d takes c4, he'll play queen e5, forking king and rook. But basically, in this position, what white had to play to stay on the board, according to Rybka, was bishop b5 check. So that if c6, queen takes f4, but it's still pretty terrible. It's not that great for white either. But in the game, this occurred. So apparently, white was winning the exchange. But here there's check, queen takes e4, threatening queen e1 mate, and look at that stranded white queen. After bishop d5, she has to play queen g8 to protect g2. But now f5, and the queen's been a victim now, as well as the white king. So f4, queen f3, check, queen f1, check, and now queen g3 mate. So that was drastic punishment meted out to white there, with the queen, going all round the board. So we move on. So in this game we see the what was originally known as the counter Greco gambit, but then later was renamed the Latvian gambit after a FIDE assembly, because someone heavily analysed it, and so there was the name change. But originally, Greco had played f5 quite a bit to knight f3 apparently. One of my sources, though, while we're on this subject, basically says the Greco counter gambit seems to have been the work of Leonardo. So it later became known as the Latvian gambit. So it's quite an aggressive idea. White took on f5, and now black played e4. After knight f6, knight e5, knight f6, g4, d6. The knight's getting chased. Now h6 to stop g5, but now chasing knight even more. And black's got a nice centre now for these pawns, and he's getting good control. Bishop b7. We have here more of a reasonable sort of game continuation. So c3 takes. Now c takes b2. Bishop takes on d2. Bishop takes on g2. So black is much better now. It's a crushing position, winning the rook as well. So here, after king f1, queen takes a3, losing yet another piece. White resigned. So that was the Greco gambit. So knight f3, and then f5. Greco counter gambit, as it was originally known. If we move on.